Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go up to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, November 29th, 2023, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most, Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that even though we do act as a news podcast, we do get our sources from the most reputable places that actually has award-winning journalism. We do not do sensational news like Fox News and all those other places. Aside from that, we do try to watch your language, but hey, words do fly. At the same time, there'll be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, how do we start this? We start this simply put by saying this almost was good news. Almost. This only takes about 20 seconds.
Derek Chauvin, the former Minneapolis police officer convicted of killing George Floyd, is expected to survive after he was stabbed on Friday in prison. That's according to the Minnesota Attorney General's office. Chauvin is currently serving out a 20-year sentence in Tucson, Arizona, for George Floyd's murder. Chauvin's attorney tells the Associated Press that no one in his family has been able to get an update from prison officials on how.
I think we can all say collectively, damn, I don't feel bad about that. Oh, it's like, well, Chauvin's family couldn't get a status of him in prison after he's been stabbed. Look, we could sit here and talk about George Floyd. We could sit here and talk about the fact he was murdered in front of our eyes. We can sit there and talk about the fact that it took this long for an officer to be put in jail, Derek Chauvin being one of them. We can sit there and talk about the fact that we saw this coming because, again, he was going to be put in protective custody once he did go to jail. And it seems like one person may have gotten him. Too bad they didn't finish the job. But I don't feel bad about it because, again, he's getting exactly what he deserves. And of course, on How the Frack We Got Here, we don't encourage violence, but we understand. That's all I'm saying. But other news that's coming out, guys, again, with the ruling behind Jayland Walker. Again, this is a trigger warning. If you haven't heard this news, well, let's just say be prepared to hear the same old thing, just a different face.
Tonight, Akron Police Chief Steve Milet cleared the 8 Akron police officers who shot and killed Jayland Walker.
Everybody who's shot, come with me.
In a 3-page summary of the internal investigation, Milet says, quote, "In my opinion, the use of deadly force was in compliance with the policies of the City of Akron Police Department," end quote. The report comes a year and a half after Walker was shot more than 40 times by police. Meanwhile, the Walker family attorney released a statement to 3 News saying in part, quote, "While not unexpected, it is exactly this position that makes it critical for us to continue the lawsuit on behalf of Jayland Walker's family," end quote. That $45 million lawsuit against the city comes as Milet cleared other actions taken by officers that night, including officers who joined the car chase of Walker who were not ordered to by a supervisor, and an officer who used an extended magazine on his department-issued gun. Milet responded to that saying, quote, "I find that the officer did not intentionally violate any policy or procedure when he added an extension to his department-issued magazine," end quote. The Akron Fraternal Order of Police said, quote, "Though tragic, our officers were within the law and agency policy," end quote, and that the union agrees with the outcome.
So what's crazy is, and again, for all those who don't know, that with Jayland Walker, it started off as a car chase. They, at this point, said that a shot was fired from Mr. Walker's car, went out on foot, and during the foot chase, he was shot 46 times. And yet, you can't seem to put together that maybe, just maybe, there might have been overuse of force. Officers that were joining the pursuit that were not ordered to, and then you have an officer that used an extended clip on his department-issued gun. And the chief of police saw nothing wrong with it. All I can sit there and say is wow. I said because people excuse it. Well, there was a shot fired from the car. He was running. Here's the thing. First and foremost, if you are running with a loaded firearm, you are not about to turn around and give the police a reason to shoot you. At the same time, you're running from the police. As it's been said many times, when you're running away from law enforcement, you're not really deemed a threat. Unless you have a firearm in your hands or on your person, you are not a threat. You're just a fleeing suspect. And I'm saying this, and I say this all the time. It is amazing, completely amazing, how officers have all these non-lethal items at their disposal, and they choose the lethal option. They always choose lethal. And again, this goes back to police training. What I mean by that is they are trained to shoot to kill. They are not trained to stop. Well, at least not stop on the person breathing, depending on your skin tone. At the same time, they're not there to try to negotiate or de-escalate the situation. They are simply there to stop the threat. However, I just find it odd that a chief of police was completely okay. I mean, additional backup, that can be argued. But why does one of your officers have an extended magazine for the department issue sidearm? That's the question I got. Because if I'm the chief of police, I'm asking the same question. Why in the world did you need an extended mag for this situation? What army or what troop were you facing that you said, oh, I might need the extra bullets? Where? But again, the Fraternal Order of Police and the chief of police seem to be in agreement. And I cannot stress this enough. Because I'll say it all the time on How the Frack Got Here. We are definitely F the police because the police have quantum immunity. The police are given multiple days to give a statement. They are given the benefit of the doubt. They are given the most protection whenever it comes to the office in court of law. And of course, the Fraternal Order of Police, those other police unions will never sit there and say a police officer did anything wrong. They will never. It amazes me that those unions out there exist. But the funny part was they never defended Derek Chauvin, which I find crazy. They were silent church mice. They didn't say anything, but they didn't condemn him either. In the same sense, like all these other officers that have killed black men, the Fraternal Order of Police and those police unions out there don't say spit. But we also shouldn't be surprised that same union out there didn't defend the Capitol police officers January 6th, where Trump had incited a mob, and that mob became terrorists. And again, those Capitol police officers that were sworn to protect the building, that some got trampled on, hurt badly, things of that nature. And again, the Fraternal Order of Police or police unions out there, all silent. But whenever it comes to the fact of whenever a police officer's job is in jeopardy, they're quick to sit there and say, they operated within the lines. They operated within the lines of the law. That's what they do. And it amazes me the level of understanding that is given to law enforcement. But everybody else, no, you're on your own. Good luck. Again, this is why I said police reform is needed, but we almost had it. But you can thank America's favorite Uncle Tom, Tim Scott, for that. At the same time, and again, as much as we want to institute policy, we have to attack the money. I'll keep bringing this up. I think the easiest way to actually get police reform and curb violence in America, tie their police pension and use that to give money to the families of the victims or survivors. And watch how quickly police reform happens. Watch how quickly the unnecessary deaths happen. Watch how quickly overexert or abuse of force is immediately reduced. Because why? Now you've attacked their livelihood. Now they're like, okay, either we stop or I find another profession. I'm just saying. But speaking of things that need to be out and done, George Santos. Well, like we talked about this last week, guys, that the report came out that said, yes, he is a fraud. Yes, he is a swindler. Yes, apparently he does not mind using your tax dollars to pay for OnlyFans. Well, it seems that they actually did bring up a motion to actually have him removed from the House. Now, of course, for him to be removed from the House takes 2/3 majority vote, which means it would take all the Democrats and some Republicans to get the job done. That being said, George Santos has a few thoughts on the matter.
Much more time on Capitol Hill. House Speaker Mike Johnson says the House will vote Friday on expelling the indicted Republican congressman. A scathing House Ethics Committee report earlier this month accused Santos of spending campaign money on, among other things, designer goods, Botox treatments, and the adult website called OnlyFans. The congressman says he will not resign. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles joins us now. Ryan, I sort of can't believe we keep talking about this. This is the third attempt now in Congress, in the House, to expel Congressman Santos. Is it expected to pass this time?
Well, Kate, it's no guarantee, that's for sure, in part because it requires a 2/3 majority of the House to pass. So that would mean every single Democrat and then some 70 plus Republicans would have to vote in favor of expelling George Santos. And while there's clearly momentum in that direction, there were a number of Republicans that were holding out some concerns about the precedent that something like this could set. Among those concerned is the House Speaker himself, Mike Johnson. Listen to what he said earlier today.
I trust that people will make that decision thoughtfully and in good faith. I personally have real reservations about doing this. I'm concerned about a precedent that may be set for that. So everybody's working through that, and we'll see how they vote.
So there's two parts of what the speaker said that are important. The first being that he's going to allow his conference to vote their conscience. That means that the leadership team is not going to whip their members to try and convince them to vote in one way or another. But he also made it clear that he's concerned about precedent. So, Kate, that tells me that when this vote happens, it's not a sure thing whether or not George Santos will stick around or be booted out.
Okay, so let's think about this for a second here. Because, again, the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, saying, well, we don't want to set the wrong precedent. What do you mean? Are you guys, let me get this straight. You all sat there and said, wait for the ethics report to come out. It came out. They found out that he lied about everything, that he swindled individuals, that he spent money on things to live a lavish lifestyle and had 0 F's to give about it. And now new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is sitting there going, well, we got to be careful because this could set the wrong precedent. How so? That we actually hold a politician to their actions? I mean, again, this is coming, and I say this part, this is coming from the same group of individuals that had no problem censoring Rashida Tlaib simply because she was Pakistani. They had no problem. There was no, well, we don't want to set the wrong precedent because, this whole thing that's happening overseas in a war I can't talk about between two countries I can't talk about because Zuckerberg and his AIs like to block everything, but you know what I'm getting at. But this group, this party, censored a Democratic lawmaker simply because of her heritage and her opinion. That alone screams volumes. But when one of their own is caught with his hand in the cookie jar, faulty on everything that he says, lied about going to certain schools, lied about his religion, lied about the funds that he did, and it was found out. It was literally painstakingly, procedurally found out of everything this man has done. And yet the GOP wants to sit there and go, well, the GOP is slowly trucking their feet. Mike Johnson is sitting there saying, well, we don't want to set the wrong precedent. Well, what's the problem? Because isn't that the idea? Isn't that the idea that the government is supposed to be for the people and that that someone in the government is not for the people, that maybe he shouldn't be there? Maybe he should be removed. I'm trying to figure out how that's the problem. Oh, that's right. Because the GOP doesn't care about people. The GOP wants to hold on to their majority in the House by any means necessary. By them giving up a seat, that means they get ever so closer to giving up the fact that they may lose. And keep in mind, they still hold a majority in the House, even if George Santos is removed. And that's a mighty big if. If he is removed, if he is voted to be removed by Friday, yes, there'll be a special election. There'll be a special election for his seat. And yes, it could still be filled by a Democrat or Republican. But in the event that it is filled by a Democratic representative, the Republicans still hold majority of the House, even though they may have lost a single vote. But if the fact that the GOP doesn't want to do it, screams volumes to me. It screams volumes about the GOP and the fact that this is all a power grab. That's all it is, power. They want to hold their power as best as they can because they know right now with the next presidential race coming up very soon and the fact that you still have Dorito out there in the wind and he's still leading and the fact that at this point, every other presidential candidate is going for number 2. I mean, every other presidential candidate is still standing between Nikki Haley, dictator Ron DeSantis, and Vivek Ramaswamy. I mean, right now that group of 12 became a group of 3, with Senator Tim Scott and Mike Scribby and America's Creepiest Christian Mike Pence dropping out. So right now it becomes the battle for second. And let's not forget, right after the presidency, there's the midterms. So the House and the Senate will be up for grabs again. But the GOP can't afford to lose a vote, even if it means keeping a crooked person like George Santos. And like I said before, I wouldn't be surprised if he's still there after Friday, because I don't see the GOP following through, which lets you know that when it comes to the GOP, everything is lined with bullshit. Just pointing that out. But speaking of things lined with bullshit, like we talked about with Nikki Haley, that is not her real name, did get a new backing from an old foe, or as I like to call them, the Darth Vader of political dark money, the Koch Network.
Very influential conservative group Americans for Prosperity Action are now putting tens of millions behind a Republican candidate who is trying to beat Donald Trump for the nomination, Nikki Haley. Here's Rachel Scott.
Tonight, a Republican powerhouse, the political organization founded by the billionaire Koch brothers, throwing its support behind former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley as the strongest GOP alternative to Donald Trump.
It's our time to turn the page and choose a new leader who will unite our party, our nation. That proven leader, Nikki Haley.
The group Americans for Prosperity Action announcing its endorsement just 7 weeks before the first votes are cast, insisting Haley would boost Republican candidates up and down the ballot, winning the key independent and moderate voters that Trump has no chance to win. They've already raised $70 million, money that could give Haley new momentum as she rises in the polls, and other candidates like Florida Governor Ron DeSantis slip.
We are now in second place in Iowa, second place in New Hampshire, and second place in South Carolina. We just have one more fellow we got to catch up to.
That fellow, of course, is Trump, who leads his Republican rivals by more than 40 points in national polls and dismisses Haley's chances.
She's going nowhere because she doesn't have what it takes.
But the former president himself is facing 91 criminal charges and will likely be on trial in March when the primary is in full swing.
And David, we should note the Koch network did not endorse a candidate in 2016. They did not endorse a candidate in 2020. But this time they say they're willing to go all in on the candidate they believe has the best chance of beating Donald Trump, David.
And that's crazy if you think about it, because again, you probably heard about the Koch brothers because the Koch brothers were the ones that were, again, quote unquote, did not endorse, although their political PACs did back Romney. Their political PACs backed several Tea Party members when the Tea Party was a thing. During Obama's second run. Those two, she's completely right. But again, it's Nikki Haley. I have to keep pointing this out. Nikki Haley, that is not her real name, which it really isn't. She changed her name to sound more American. She doesn't stand on anything. I mean, her performances in the GOP presidential debates were crappy and were given. She's fighting all the same conservative talking points. She talks about as a woman, oh yeah, well abortion is a big thing. She talks about border control. She used to be an ambassador for the United States and was terrible at her job at that. But at the same time, she believes she can take on Trump. And I feel like a broken record whenever I say this. I do feel like a broken record is the way I can say this. She's going to sit there and say that she can take on Trump. I point this out about the GOP all the time. The GOP is basically for old white men, corporations, and rich people. Those are the three dynamic groups out there that will have nothing bad to say about the GOP because they benefit from them. The GOP, number one, will never see a black man take the nomination for their party. Tim Scott should have figured that out from Jump Street. The second thing I'm going to say, the GOP will never see a woman as their top political pick. That's why Nikki Haley, in my opinion, won't make it. So who's your next option? Vivek Rashevsky? He barely can't keep the truth straight. But you know the whole thing about this is Trump is sitting there on his 91 charges, smiling, hasn't attended a presidential debate yet because he says the same thing all the time. Why do I need to go? I'm leading in the polls. When you're leading in the polls by double digits over other party candidates, he's exactly right. There's nothing he needs to do. Nikki Haley can have all the money in the world behind her, but the problem is she doesn't stand out as a Trump alternative. The only way she stands out is that she's a woman. That is pretty much it. And it will be sad to see because, again, even with Trump 2.0, Ron DeSantis still hanging around, even though he's slipping, she may have gotten new money to be pushed forward. The thing about it is there's still not yet a candidate on the Republican side because what's going to wind up happening, and mark my words on this, somewhere in 2024, if Trump is not in jail, they're going to embrace Trump again. Why? Because they have to have power. And if it means the devil so be it. And trust me when I say this, the GOP are not too far from embracing Trump again. Why? Because number one, he's still leading. Number two, his cult is still out there. And number three, he's not in jail. Until he's actually going to be indicted, you might as well consider him the next nomination. But moving right along, guys, we do have some news about the Walmart shooting in Ohio. And I hate to say this is starting to become way too known about these individuals who decide that today was the day to wreck other people's lives.
Panic.
It's an active shooter in Walmart.
And shooting 4 people inside this Walmart.
You can still hear the gunshots?
Yes.
The 20-year-old suspect had arrived at the Beaver Creek store in his black pickup. According to court documents, security video shows Benjamin Jones exiting his truck, which he left running. The driver's side door was open and headlights were still on. He walked into the store carrying a rifle and seconds later began shooting. Police found a handwritten note inside the truck, although they haven't elaborated on what it said. The investigation led police 10 miles away to Jones's home. A search warrant shows investigators seized 18 items, including 2 Nazi flags, more handwritten notes, and an SS history book. The SS was a paramilitary organization under Adolf Hitler. The FBI confirmed the shooting may have been inspired by racially motivated violent extremist ideology. After shooting 4 shoppers, a white woman, 2 black women, and a white man, police said Jones turned the gun on himself.
Shooter is down. Shooter is down.
WLWT looked into his past and found Fairborn police had 2 interactions with Jones last year because he was suicidal. Records show in April of 2022, Jones told officers, "Life has been stressful lately, and he would probably hang himself." A month later, Jones told police he felt overwhelmed by everything and the thought of becoming an adult, and he thought about using a gun to shoot himself in the head. Both times, Jones was transported to Soin Medical Center for a mental health evaluation. Just 2 days before the Walmart shooting, investigators say Jones purchased a high-point .45 caliber carbine from a Dayton area store. Investigators say they're looking to see if any of Jones's answers on the ATF form were inaccurate. One of the questions he would have had to answer, have you ever been adjudicated as a mental defective, or have you ever been committed to a mental institution?
And the FBI says it is continuing to look into the shooter's background, online activity, and motive. The FBI is asking anyone with information about Jones to call the FBI directly.
So I got to point this out because I think you guys are pointing this out too. How in the world was this individual allowed to purchase a gun? Okay, because again, yes, it's tragic that folks were injured at this mass shooting. But again, it goes back to what I said. These individuals, disturbed individuals, are still able to get access to firearms. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of those people, you homosexuals, you Second Amendment defenders. Let me go ahead and stress this because I have to keep saying this every time. Every time I mention gun control, you guys come out the woodwork with your flags and your keyboard warriors and your patriotic shirts. I will say this all the time. Yes, I believe in the Second Amendment. I am a firearms owner myself. That being said, nobody's coming for your guns. Nobody. That is a BS paranoia lie that was told to you by the NRA and was repeated by the GOP ever since the black man became president. Obama's coming for your guns. No, he's not. Nobody's coming for your guns. Nobody cares about that pea shooter AR-15 that you bought from Bass Pro Shops when the government has access to much better quality than what you have. I have to say that all the time, guys, so I apologize for that little tangent, but I have to say that all the time when it comes to that kind of thing, because whenever we talk about gun control, they come out the woodwork. The thing about it is, this individual that we're talking about that was that shot at the Walmart in Ohio had suicidal tendencies, checked into a mental hospital, at the same time told law enforcement officers that he is a danger to himself. Yet he was able to go into a gun store, fill out an application, and for some odd reason, was still able to purchase a AR-style rifle. Even though the whole idea was in the questionnaire, have you been in a mental hospital? And I'm thinking to myself, if he's been in a mental hospital, there's a record of this. That record would have to be submitted to the ATF. That's where most of your background checks go to. Most background checks go to the ATF. As long as you don't have anything pressing, usually you're good to go. But this is what we're talking about when it comes to certain regulations about cases of domestic violence, about cases of you being in a mental institution, about cases where you're showing suicidal tendencies. To me, those are 3 red flags. You should not be able to own a firearm, regardless. If one of those 3 things are on your record somewhere and they are found, you should be denied a firearm because you can't be trusted. Now, what's going to wind up happening is that, again, with gun control, it's going to have to come back up again. That if I was the ATF or if I was a lawmaker, I would push forward with gun reform. That, again, these are not criminal. I mean, they are criminal. Let me say this more. They're terrorists. They are criminals, yes, but they're not getting these guns illegally anymore. They're getting these guns legally, which a lot of people still want to sit there and say, well, laws aren't going to stop criminals. It's not the criminals that are causing the mass shootings right now. They're only criminals after the fact they created the action. But beforehand, they were just an individual that, for most terms and purposes, was able to get a gun with no issue. And in this case, I still ask this question, why was he able to get a gun with no issue? A bigger thing is, that's why I'll be asking your lawmakers at this point. Because if guys like him can still get firearms, mass shootings will continue until change is done. And I can go on a whole nother rant about what changes can be done with firearms, but as I've been told, my firearms restrictions and new policies are a little restrictive. Well, yeah, if you pass them, you'll be fine. But speaking of things that'll be fine, guys, another strike has concluded. And again, there seems to be a common theme with these strikes. This one being a teachers union.
To a tentative deal back here to end Portland's first ever teacher strike that led to 11 days of canceled classes. Stephanie Ramos joins us with more. Good morning, Stephanie.
Juju, good morning. This morning, nearly 45,000 students in Oregon's largest school district are heading back to school. A tentative contract deal has been reached between the teachers union and the Portland School District, ending the 3-week strike. The new contract is worth $175 million over the next 3 years and includes a nearly 14% cost of living increase for teachers, improved class sizes, more built-in lesson planning time and teaching time, an expedited teacher hiring process, and $20 million to correct building and maintenance issues prioritized by the teachers. Portland is just one of the districts where teachers went on strike this year, but one of the largest in recent years, with thousands more in California threatening to walk off the job. And while this deal is good news, it's not a done deal yet. The teachers union still needs to vote on the contract, and the school board needs to sign off, but schools are expected to open up this morning, and teachers and students will be able to make up the days missed during the strike. Lindsay?
All right. And again, It is amazing to me. It is amazing to me, guys, that whenever it comes to strikes, it always comes down to the same basic things. It always comes down to more money, better working conditions, but mostly money. People want people. It's like people do want to work, despite what people think. People do want to work. People want to work with no issue. People want to have sustainable wages. People don't want to have to try to make ends meet, work multiple jobs, and do all this as everything goes up but your paycheck. I have been saying this, and this is why strikes are effective. And this is why I keep saying, if you have a union in your area, you should join it. And if there's not a union there, decide to get with others and create one. We're seeing that in Amazon. Amazon, the biggest e-retailer on the planet, may have a union problem because unions are starting to pop up despite Amazon doing union busting and still paying fines for illegal union busting. But I'm proud of those teachers in Portland because you know what? They're getting what they need and then some. Which again, had the school district did that from the jump street, there would be no need for strikes. So again, how we got here, we are all pro-union. Why? Because it's really stupid to negotiate with companies and corporations on your own. But if you do it in numbers, you cannot be ignored. But speaking of things that can't be ignored, guys, AI, unfortunately, because with ChatGPT coming out, Amazon is launching their own AI service called Q. I'm going to be honest about this. This is something that, as an IT person, I'm dreading because most IT people, depending on who you talk to, may or may not like the use of artificial intelligence. Is it used in a lot of areas already? Of course, I can tell you right now, it's used by the bots. It's used by the bots at Facebook because if you say certain trigger words, your stream will immediately stop. Trust me, found it out last week. But at the same time, guys, there is a danger around AI because AI can do a lot of things. It can, as we've seen, create accept or rejection letters. It can write dissertations if you give enough information. It can do a lot of things. And I'm not saying that AI won't make our lives easier or more helpful. In some ways it can. But again, AI is an intelligence that can learn. And I'm sorry, I have seen way too many movies where somebody thought AI was a good thing, and all I keep hearing is Skynet Phase 2 in my head. I'm just pointing that out. Speaking of other things that are being pointed out, guys, cities are cracking down on homeless encampments. Trust me, I'm seeing that here. I live in Tennessee. I can tell you, Middle Tennessee right now, they're trying to break down on that. They're also trying to break down on it in California and New York. Why? Because America's homeless population is increasing. The last time it was checked, it was nearing 580,000 people across the U.S. But the thing about it is what they don't want to talk about. This is the thing that kills me when they don't want to talk about it. It's like, why do we have so many homeless people? I mean, lack of affordable housing. Have you seen housing these days? Developers come in, build up these apartments, charge New York rent in the southern states. And at the same time, these houses that used to have so many acres are getting bought out, the land being tilled, and again, straight up zero-lot homes being built. But these zero-lot homes can be anywhere from high fives, high sixes, almost up into the millions. And again, I point this out that people are sitting there saying, well, you can't afford a home. And it's absolutely right. In this day and age, where banks are less liable to give you a mortgage loan, and unless that you have certain special programs out there that don't have a lot of funding, which could actually be cut, you're going to run into the same problem again. For a lot of Americans, they are 1 or 2 paychecks away from being in poverty or being homeless out on the street. But again, for most cities, they're worried about the idea of tent cities popping up and ruining the image of what their city looks like. And that, my friends, is a humongous problem. But again, we'll follow those stories as it goes along because it's only as these properties and the way our economy is going, it's only going to get worse until we decide to address it. But also in Iowa, the the LGBTQ plus. I apologize to my allies, but that's a long ass group name. They are actually doing what they can to keep library books on their shelves. They are actually suing they're actually suing Iowa because again, Iowa's one of those other cities and other states that were trying to, as they say, prevent children from reading pornography and explicit items or things of that nature. However, the funny part was that the books that they did remove were all from people of color and LGBTQ plus allies and themselves and individuals. And that's what's so crazy. They'll sit there and say, "Oh, so you can't read something that was created by an LGBTQ plus person, but you'll keep the Bible in libraries." Make that make sense. But I'm glad that they're suing because they should. Because here's the thing about reading. Reading is fundamental. The more a child reads, the better they do in grade, the better they do in grades, social skills, things of that nature. I am all for reading. So kids, read the banned books. I cannot stress that enough. Because you got groups out here like Moms for Liberty and other groups out here who are doing their hardest to make sure that the books that you have out there, you yourself won't be able to read, or you yourself are scared of reading. Like for the longest time, people are like, even in my day and age, of course I'm 40 years old, if that tells you anything, but people during my age were afraid of reading books like To Kill a Mockingbird. The book's racist. Yes, that's the entire point of the book. Or Fahrenheit 451, where people report where books are being burned because of knowledge. Well, that's stupid, and yet that's a bestseller. Of Mice and Men, The Grapes of Wrath, The Great Gatsby. But you're worried about books like Twilight. Let them have the sparkly vampires. They're not hurting anybody. Oh, well, what about 50 Shades of Grey? I can't imagine a high school kid reading that type of literature that seems geared more toward older adults. But you have no problem with Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul. You have no problem with religious texts, which I think is crazy. But I always sit there and say it like this: if the Bible itself can be in a library, so a book for Satanists should be there. And watch their heads explode. Ooh, better one. If you could put the Bible in a public library, you should also be able to put the Quran there. You should also be able to put the Book of Mormon there. You should also be able to put Buddha's teachings there. Watch the religious heads explode because it's all about indoctrination. It's not about the fact these books are different. It's the fact that they don't want these kids to think. That's what it comes down to. They don't want these kids to think. They don't want these kids. They just want them to be rubber stampers. Yes, drones, really. And that's the thing about that I want to institute, that I hope our educators are able to do even in these tough times, to help create and develop critically thinking individuals, because we need that more right now in America. And I cannot stress that enough. But hey, we're going to keep up with the story because, like I said, the whole fight for banned books is real. And trust me, if you do not fight for it, we will have a Fahrenheit 451 situation, or the Book of Eli, depending on which one you go by. But another story, guys, a couple more stories we do to our feel good segment. Again, President Biden is moving forward trying to do a ban on menthols, which again, of course, for a lot of people, especially those of the people of color variety, you've probably seen one or two ads like this that are showing right there, because menthols, like cigarettes, can be dangerous, hazardous to your health. And I came straight, and everything else the truth.com tells you. We've all been down that route. But I find it interesting that because they're trying to ban this from the tobacco industry, something told me to go looking. Because I remember as a kid, you saw images like this. 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 Where again, it's always menthols. But the thing that I want to point out the most is that menthols were always pointed out to be toward a certain demographic. And menthols were pointed at Black people. And I've always sat there and said to myself, and I'm going to probably be alone on this, and if I am, so be it. But the damage that was done by the tobacco industry to Black people for causing so many things, and yet the advertisements, I'm just like, I am looking at the advertisements that I'm pointing out here, guys. And I just got to point out one thing. Do you see one napkin among those advertisements? What I mean by that is, do you see one advertisement where it was geared toward white people? You'll be hard pressed to find it, especially for menthols. Because I know a lot of people are sitting there going, oh, well, the Marlboro Man. Well, yes, you have one. But Newports, Cools, Camels, Salem's, I can keep going down the road here. All those cigarettes that were menthols, and this is why they got such a boost. Those same places, those same companies made billions off Black individuals literally buying those products. Still to this day. And I thought to myself the entire time, for all the damage it's done, why have it at this point? And I'm only pointing this out because I just thought this was interesting. Why haven't at this point a lawsuit has been put forward with the tobacco company on behalf of Black people for all the damage it's done? Now, granted, it hasn't done the amount of damage that slavery has done, but at the same time, it's like, how are they not being held accountable? Well, the Surgeon General's warning was on the side. Okay, yes. At the same time, look at your advertisements. You knew which group you were targeting. You knew which group of people you were targeting. You knew if you got certain celebrities or drawings or made smoking look like it was cool, it was no problem selling it. Just like malt liquor and everything else. Malt liquor is another one. I can go down that list too. Colt 45, Mad Dog. Again, I could pull those advertisements. And there's one thing I'm going to point out in every one of those advertisements. You will not see a white person on those. And yet I ask this question. How is it that a case has not been brought up to where we as a people could come forth and say the damage done against this industry, the damage that the tobacco industry has done to Black people should be put in a lawsuit? That's the one thing I've always wondered. But I find it interesting that, yes, Biden is moving forward with banning menthols, and that's great. But when you think about the fact of how many menthols advertisements and the fact that billions, what I say with a B, were sold to Black people, and now they want to ban it, which I'm happy they are banning it, albeit it may have been 60 years too late, 60 or 70 years too late. But still, it almost feels like something can be moved forward on this. But finally, guys, before we get to our feel good segment, should cars have built-in speed limits? Now, again, if you're like me and you're in a high residential area or just a popular area like Nashville, we've all known drivers. There have been wrecks on a daily basis. I know for the simple fact of the matter that insurance companies love the South simply put because the southern states have a higher percentage of wrecks and fatalities. And I hate to break it to you guys, but the higher the percentage of wrecks and fatalities in your area, the more insurance companies love it because they can jack up the rates for that area and everybody pays more, which a lot of people don't know. So again, which kind of brings up the fact that the National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, is recommending that all vehicles come equipped with technology to make speeding difficult or impossible. Now, I know for a lot of you guys are wondering, well, isn't that just basically the governor chips? Yes, but not all cars have it. Not all cars are installed with governing chips, which means that what I mean by that is, if you don't know what a governing chip is, it basically reduces how fast a car can go. So, for example, if your odometer says, let's just use this for an example, if your car has a governing chip and your odometer says 120, 140, if it comes straight from the factory, there's no chance on God's green earth that unless that governor chip has been modified or has been wiped from the car's ECM, there is no way that car will ever get that high speed. None, no way. But I see the logic. But when they say that more items need to be done, because keep in mind, we are moving forward to more computers being in cars than anything else. And with Tesla and Tesla and other companies experimenting with self-driving vehicles, it's not too far off that they actually might start using AI technology in order to make sure that people are speeding or slowing down or just trying to prevent wrecks anyway. Now, again, that is a small thing and nothing's really been decided about that as they're trying to push forward a report on that. But the point I'm making, guys, is just that, is it really a good idea to have Skynet driving your car? We've already seen the number of times a Tesla has wrecked or hit somebody when it was self-driving. Do you really want to trust it over a human being and its judgment on how to control a car? That is all I'm saying. It never sits right with me. That's all I'm saying. But we're gonna go and move on to our feel good segment, guys, because usually how the Frack we got here, we usually do look at a lot of things, sometimes with doom and gloom. Makes you use faith in humanity. But hey, it's Wednesday. Tomorrow is Friday Eve, which is Thursday. We want guys to get you guys over the hump with some feel good vibes. I think this will do it because everybody loves a good marriage proposal, right? Everybody loves a good love story. I know myself, I got married earlier. I got married not too long ago, actually. It's like, wow, I think about it. I got married in September. It's now November. So been married for a while. But the proposal, I can remember like it was yesterday. And yet the story that we're going to tell is a woman that is reliving her proposal. And I can't tell if she was shocked or didn't see it coming.
What's why you laughing? What you laughing at? Did you really say this? Huh? Did you really say this? What did it say? Wow. That's what you married me to.
Had no clue whatsoever that he was going to propose. I had the cake after I contained myself and calmed down. I still had me a piece of cake.
I knew that my mom was getting proposed to. We flew out to Atlanta, but she thought that it was just going to be a Christmas party. And I just thought that it was so beautiful. It was organic. It was real. We were all super excited.
When I met her, it was just something that I felt that she was a very special individual. And that's what drawn me to her.
I thought that it was amazing to see my mom find love at this stage in her life. It had been 20 years, she had been married before and, she never talked about getting married again.
I can actually say I was not nervous that day. I thought I was going to be, but I was not. I was so excited to come down that aisle and see Paul standing there at that altar. I mean, I wanted to cry, but I didn't because I didn't want to mess up my makeup.
It was like everything went fast forward. The morning came and all of a sudden we were saying I do to each other. I was just totally engaged and excited about the entire experience.
Just seeing him there, I just know that I was about to marry my friend, my partner, and just have that lifetime love with that someone that I actually found.
I'm a late bloomer. I always said to myself, if I got to a certain age, I would never get married. And what you may say or think in your mind is something totally different than what the good Lord has in store for you. I never second guessed myself. I knew that she was the right person for me.
It's never too late. Because for myself, for someone who thought they would never get married again, especially at this age, it's just about always finding that right person. And once you actually have that connectivity with that person, that's just something that you just don't want to let go. So just seeing that really made me smile that, our love story was put out there and so many people reacted to it in a positive way. And just reading some of those comments and everything, I feel that we have given other people out there hope to find love.
And again, I think that's great. Like I said before, guys, when it comes to certain things, like that, hey, you don't think you're going to find love, and yet you do. So definitely mazel tov to the happy couple. But with that being said, that's really going to do with this podcast, guys. I do want to thank you all for liking, for watching, for letting people know this is live. I certainly appreciate that. Some shameless plugging before we do get out of here, guys. I do want to shout out to my boy Vaughn at Big BZA Dot. You can definitely check him out and his page as he does do beats for shows, for skits, or for music. If you do have an idea, definitely check him out, Big BZA Dot on all social media. Aside from that, guys, I do want to point out that me and my other compadres are joining Blur Station. Now, you're probably wondering what Blur Station is. I'll gladly tell you. Do you like Netflix? Do you like Hulu? Do you like Amazon Prime? Do you hate the streaming prices? Do you hate that your content gets? Do you hate that content gets added and removed and nobody asks for your opinion about it? Well, Blur Station is basically the next Netflix. What I mean by that is it is basically the next area of entertainment for people of color and for those of the Blur variety. If you haven't checked it out, definitely go to blurstation.com. Again, guys, there's so much there. There is shows like issue number 1. There are shows like Undead Horizon. We are covering cosplay. And as you can see there, guys, it's everything that's showing there. Now, you're probably wondering what you need to do. Well, it's very simple. If you do want to join, just simply click the join now. And if you'll just do me a favor, if you go to the Blurred's Eye View Affinity membership, as you can see, there's $10.99. Once you're there, guys, go do me a favor. Just select Black Spartan there at the Influence Partner. I would certainly appreciate it because it definitely helps me out. And you're probably wondering about the Affinity membership, what that basically means. Well, so again, it's $10.99 a month, which again, that price is for it is right now. $10.99 a month. You can still get this service and still have money to eat afterwards. That's always a plus. But for 36 months at $10.99 a month, you will have the option of actually owning a piece of Blur Station. That's right. You yourself could own. You ever want to own a piece of Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Prime, things of that nature? Well, without having to go through Fidelity or E-Trade and pay a crap load for a share, well, this is the alternative. So after 36 months at $10.99 a month, you too can actually have the ability to own a piece of Blur Station. And again, this is the move because we are trying to do a lot more than your usual television, your movies, your animation, things of that nature. We wanted to expand, but we cannot do it without you. So definitely check out blurstation.com. You get a chance, guys. Check out the Affinity membership. And of course, select me there at Black Spartan. I would certainly appreciate that. As for myself, guys, like I said, BlackBox447, you usually find me on all the socials. I do reviews on mostly everything. The link at the bottom, if I can just make that just a little bit bigger for you guys to see. If you copy and paste that link into your browser, it'll take you by Linktree. That's YouTube and Facebook groups for all the podcasts. How the Frack got here, Get Bit, of course, Off Much Podcast. Like, share, subscribe. Simply put, please, and I love this. Don't get me wrong, guys. I love the fact that everybody's looking at this. I've had people on the streets there and telling me they see my shows. I certainly appreciate that. But I beg, I implore, just simply don't like, share, tell people about it. Word of mouth is how we beat this algorithm across these socials. And again, word of mouth is the greatest advertisement that we do have at our arsenal. So please like, share, subscribe, tell people about it. It helps me out because I would love to continue doing this, but I cannot do this without the support of people like you. I sound like a PBS commercial, but it's true. I cannot do this without you guys. And also, guys, with that being said, I do got to point this out as well. The presidential election is coming up. Please, please, please get informed. Please do not take everything at face value. Know what these candidates are. And again, get to know the votes because they are trying their hardest to make sure they take voting away from you. They are trying each and every way possible. But again, get informed, get registered, save yourself the hassle, especially if you can early vote when it becomes possible because the presidential election is coming up next year. Midterms will follow directly after that. Also, about the thing that I cannot talk about in a country I cannot mention, between two country names I cannot mention because Facebook was bugging, do your research. I'm not saying pick a side, but do your research. Understand that not everything is at face value. Don't listen to the hashtags. Go out there and find the research. As much as we have Google and search engines in front of us, there is no reason why we should not be informed. Because when we're informed, we are powerful, we're engaged, we are critically thinking, and that's what we need to be as a society. So, the last thing I'll say about How the Frack got here, guys, is all about being informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information to allow you to make up your own mind. But we do provide a lot of perspective that goes along with it. We do better as society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to change. We try to right the wrongs of the past by making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first Black woman to be the first National Cybersecurity Director. All great things. When we don't learn from history, that's when we are doomed to repeat it. That's when we keep asking ourselves, why does everything go up on our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians to Congress, but still the same old game? Most importantly, how the Frack got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll get through this. Peace.